Hello and welcome back. We are continuing on with the modeling process of our Mark 7 Viper from Battlestar Galactica, so I'm just going to jump right in. Let's start off here in the side view, and what I'm going to tackle next is this area with the canopy. Now, I'll probably end up attaching that to the forward area of the fuselage, but we'll start off building it as a separate component and just kind of go from there. So to begin, I'm still in edit mode. I'm going to go to add mesh and bring in a plane, which popped out here to the side, which is of course just fine. Let's just slide this forward a bit, and I'll slide these together, lift it up, and over here in the side view, I'll just kind of get that positioned near the top. Now let's go ahead and go into wireframe. I want to make sure that this gets pushed back through this back wall we have here. Now let's hit Control Tab, V, switch over to vertices, and I'll pull one of these verts down. I was hoping it would be the outside one, but it was the inside one, which is okay. I'll just reverse the two, because I need a little bit of a downward bend here. So you can see how that kind of works. Looks terrible right now, but that's okay. It's supposed to. Now let's jump over here back to the side view. And I don't really need this to go that far back, so we'll just pull it back to about there. I mean, a little bit of protrusion is going to be good, but too much, and we're just wasting valuable texture space. So we'll try to keep that to a minimum. And I'll pull this down to about here. I mean, I'm halfway tempted to make a nice differentiation line between the actual glass of the canopy and the rest of it, but I'll handle that by adding some detail shortly. So let's go over to the front view. And looks like I'm going to need to pull these two vertices way inward. So I'm going to select them here, then jump back over to front again, and we'll pull them to about halfway down the glass. Now, let's switch over to edges. Grab this edge. Make sure it's the edge that I want. Back over in the front view again, we'll hit E and extrude this all the way down to the base of the canopy. So just kind of a place to start, really, as much as anything else. Now, a couple of things. If we take a look from the top view, this is probably not going to be working too well for us. It's pretty close, actually. Closer than I thought it would be, to be sure. We can pull this out a little ways, and that's actually going to help because we'll get a little bit of nice protrusion there. We're also going to, of course, need to round this out a little more. So let's go ahead and start working on that sooner rather than later. But first, let's go to Control Tab V for vertices. I'm going to grab this back vertex. We'll pull that up a little, like so. Slide this guy up a little bit. And so far, I think that's working. So, let's hit Control R. We'll add in one loop here, which is really just an extra edge, and we'll use that to sort of round this out. Control R again over here. Do the same thing. Now I wanted that whole edge, so let's make sure we get both of these vertices. Okay, and looks like maybe this front vertex could be pulled in a ways, because we are on the glass at this point, so we do kind of want to follow the contour of that. Also, it looks like this could be pulled down. Alright, Control Tab E. And I'm just kind of spacing out those edges a little more nicely. I'm tempted to add a little more rounding to that, and I'm sure I can get away with it in terms of overall poly count, because right now we're only at 380 faces, and I said I'd like to pull this in at 3,000 to 4,000, so I know I could probably get away with more, but I think for the time being I'm going to let it sit, because I mean that's getting the job done. So let's just kind of move on and take care of the contour as we move forward. So let's go back over to the side view. I'll hit Z. Now, Control Tab E for edges, and it looks like that took me to weight paint mode. Let me switch back over to edit mode because I hit it a little too soon. No problem. And let's hit Alt and click on this front edge. Make sure that gets everybody. Looks like it does, which is good. And I'm going to hit E to extrude, and we'll pull this forward to right about here, and just sort of pull it down. Now, let's see, there's a couple of different ways we could go about doing this. If I stay back here, then we could grab vertices, and I could just start pulling verts to sort of outline the edge of the canopy. And then we could take a look from the top view, and that got amazingly close, didn't it? Slide this in. Slide this in. Pull this in. And I mean, that's a good start. Now let's see about hitting Control R, adding a loop. Right about here, I'm going to hold down Shift and deselect. Well, we don't really need to do it on the other side, do we? So just that one vertex there at the base. Excuse me. Make sure we have all these guys selected and pull this forward. About like so, and then I'll just kind of average out some vertex positions. Now let's see if I can do that again. Right about here, I suppose. Also, let me see about this. Let me hit Control Tab F. I want this face. We're going to hit X and delete it out. Switch over to edges, grab these two edges like so, and just hit F and just flip that into a triangle. Not worry about it anymore. Go back over to vertices. I'm going to slide this forward and up a little bit. Let me change that over here in the user preferences. Now this will bite me sooner or later because I go back and forth with whether or not I actually like doing this. But if I come over here, now let me make sure that I remember where this option is. Because always when I want to do something, I always forget. Let's see. Open on mouse over. No, I don't want to do that. Turn zoom, view manipulation. No, that's not what I want to do at all. What I was looking for was release mouse to commit the change. That can go away. It's just in my way. You know, I'll find it later. I gotta admit, I have to look up where it is, and I don't want to sit here and just dig for it because it's not jumping right out at me. So I'll look up where that goes a little bit later down the road. No biggie. All right. So let's go over to top view and clean this up. And we can pull this in just a little bit more. Okay. Now, if we get out of edit mode and smooth that out, overall, that's not looking half bad. Let's take a look from the front view. Ooh, that actually got pretty clean. Some part of me would really like to see a bit more rounding here, to be honest, but don't know if we really need that right now. So let's go back over to vertices, and let me just try pulling these out a little further, see if that makes me a little happier. Just hear a whole bunch of mad clicking. That's how modeling goes, though. Alright, we can pull these up to sit right on the surface, like so. And I think overall that's going to get the job done pretty well. I think I could add a little more rounding here. These edges here and here are in a bit of a straight line, so we have some redundant detail because of that. Yeah, you can even see it. It's right there, plain as day. So let's grab this edge and we'll pull this out to create a little bit more rounding, which will be good. Okay. Double check from the top view, still looking pretty good. May narrow this in just a little bit. I know I'm going a little bit back and forth there, but it happens. Okay. Now, as for any sort of separation down through here, we can do it. We've certainly got enough excess detail to pull it off, but I think I'm going to try to avoid it for now, and we'll just save that detail. If I need to go back when we're finished with the model and make kind of a detailing pass, then I'll do that. But if I don't have to, then so much the better. If I just save some vertices and everything looks great, then hey, that's awesome. Okay, so now with the canopy done, we can move forward and start taking on other parts of the fuselage, or we can take a look at the wings. Now, if I pull over my reference imagery, that's a pretty good shot, and so is this. What I want to point out is that it really does look like the wings are busted up into two areas. You have this area back here that's kind of its own piece, and then you have the front part of the wing, the leading edge, which is all kind of molded right into the main fuselage. And you can see that nice little gap right there. If I take a look from a couple of different angles, it starts to become a little more apparent. So yeah, you have this back part of the wing and the front part of the wing, which is all kind of part of the nose. Now, we don't necessarily have to leave it as part of the nose. We could separate it all out. I'm going to try not to do that if I can help it. And if you're looking for something to really give you inspiration, you can check out this, for instance, which really does a pretty good job of showing how this could be handled a bit differently. Now, this looks like a slightly different version of the model there, or at least an early version of the model, but still, you can see where there is some nice seamage right in here. Now, because we're doing this as a game model, there's no reason why we couldn't just make this shadowing, etc., part of a bump map or a normal map and deal with it via texture. That's certainly a valid way to look at the problem. I'm at odds in my with myself as to whether or not I really want to handle it that way. Some part of me wants to, another part of me wants to go ahead and build it as two entirely separate objects. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to try it once as one great big piece. So we'll have the front fuselage that just kind of blends in, becomes part of this back wing, and I'll see about adding a little bit of geometry down through here to get just enough separation where textures could do the rest of the work. I think that might be a better way to go about it, as opposed to breaking it up into way too many pieces. So let's just start there. If we take a look at the side view, I mean, you can see that it is a pretty severe change from the side, but again, I don't think there's anything that we couldn't just kind of rough in with basic geometry and then really let texturing make that look amazing. So let's start off, well, let's just start off the same way we've started off with every other piece that we've built on. I just want to add another plane. So let's go to Add Mesh Plane, and it's already kind of where I want it to be, quite frankly. But we'll pull this down a little bit just so we can tell one side from the other. Now, I don't want to build too much of the wing at once, so if you're thinking that it's a good idea to go into the top view and just like quickly rough in the wing shape like I'm doing right now, you can do this. I wouldn't necessarily want to work this way, but there's no reason why you couldn't start out with something like that. I'm going to start off with a much smaller piece myself, though. So let's come to about here, like so, and about here, maybe as far back as that. And I will have to kind of protrude into the shape a little bit. So we'll pull that through. And maybe to about there. Now if I come over to the side view, I need to sort of clean that up. And it gets really visually confusing really quickly, as you might have seen. So let's do what we've done before in these videos. Let's grab this face, and I'll simply go to Mesh, excuse me, and we'll hide unselected. And let's see here. If I close out that modifier for now because I don't need it, we hide out the mirror modifier, then that makes everything sort of go away, which means that from this view, this is all we're going to see, and I find that pretty useful. So Control Tab, V, and I'll pull this all the way back to about here, and this vertex will pull up to about here. Now what I need to do is get this back vertex right about here at the bend in the wing, because that's kind of where we put it in the top view. But let's double check where we put this upper vertex. Now if we're looking for something we can just use as an indicator of where to stow stuff, we have this change in direction right here on the text string. You don't always have this kind of information when you're modeling, but since we have it, we might as well use it. So if I pull this up like so, it's right about here, we're pretty close to dead on. It looks like we're a little bit further back, but little minor discrepancies like that are certainly not going to be enough for me to get too concerned. But that should give us roughly the thickness that we need for the wing. So with that, let's go back over to the top view, and let's add in a little more detail to start turning this into something shapely. So Control R, add detail this way, and I'll click once here, grab this vertex, and we'll slide this forward. And we'll slide this forward a little bit as well. Maybe slide this guy up just a little bit. And let's take a look from the side view. Okay, that's fitting in reasonably well, all things considered. Let's hit Control R and add some detail in this direction. And now we can just grab all of that detail and move it around a little bit. And I'll do that one more time back here. I'll pull this up. Now let's see if I can get away with just switching over to vertices and just grab this vertex and pull it back a little. Grab this vertex and pull it back and down a little. I may want to put just one more edge back in there for some rounding, but I'm going to try not to do that too quickly. If I decide I need one, I'll add it in later. Okay. So, back up to the top view. Things looking pretty good so far. And from the side view, things also looking good. Let's build forward and then I'll build outward. So we'll hit Control Tab E for edges. I want to grab these two front edges. We'll hit the E key to extrude, and I'll pull them to right about here. Switch over to the top view. And I can start kind of slanting this detail backwards to help me achieve the shape of the leading edge of the wing when I finally get there. So we'll pull that in. Now, there is this really kind of handsome indentation right up here at it's almost like some sort of cowling intake sort of shape. I mean, I realize it's not what it is, but it's kind of what it looks like. I'll probably end up having to kind of ignore that, but, Now what I can do is I can probably take this little piece of detail and pull it up here to about the point of it, and maybe pull this back. And that starts to kind of emulate it a little, which that might be just as useful. Now at the same time, once again, we can use our detail to figure out where stuff should be placed. So I could put this vertex right here along this little stripe that you see, and then jump over to the side view, and there's one and there's the second one, so it should be somewhere right about here. These pieces I'm also figuring should be pulled up just a little bit. So that's about right with where the wing should be. Now we can hit Control R, add another piece of detail, another edge loop here, and we'll go ahead and get that kind of arranged before we do anything else. So lift this up, lift this up, and lift this up. Now I'm doing a little bit of mental interpolation here. I'm assuming that once we get to about this part on the wing is starting to get pretty flat, so I'm making sure I'm not doing anything too crazy. Just take a look at the direction your edges are going, and you can kind of work from there. Now here, let's do the same thing. And we'll grab these two vertices, and we'll lift these up a little. Actually, let me pull them back to about here. Okay, and we'll clean this up just a bit. We'll probably end up using that edge to get some of our detail in. So I can just pull that up like so, and you see what I'm doing is I'm tracing out this change in elevation very carefully. Now let's pull these vertices out so that that protrusion isn't quite so heavy. Or penetration, however you want to look at it. That in to about there. We can also pull this up a little bit to about here. Okay. Yeah, we'll go with that for now. Alright, now, say, just for the sake of example, or for argument, that we don't deal too much with getting out all that detail right at the moment, this change in elevation and whatnot. We'll deal with that later when the time is right. But I can get a couple of things in place that will help. For instance, we can hit Control R and add in some detail right along here, and you see that lines up pretty well with where I want that to be. This stuff, these vertices can stay pretty much right where they are for the time being. I don't really see much of a need to wiggle them around too much at the moment. Though there may come a time during a tweaking phase a little later on where I've got to do just that. But we'll jump off that bridge when we come to it. Okay, so now moving along our wing, let me switch over and grab edges. And I'm going to get these two edges, I'm going to hit extrude. And let's pull them generally straight forward, switch over to vertices, and I'm going to grab this vertex and pull it out. Like so, and this vertex will just pull it up. So we're kind of meeting here at this corner. Okay, and now let's just check that from the side view. And we can see that this needs to come down. And this needs to come down. And this, let's double check where it's supposed to be. It's right above the Galactica logo. So, we'll jump out here to the side view, and, well, it's actually pretty close to where it needs to be right about now. So we can actually see that change in direction taking place, which is good. This vertex looks like it needs to be pulled up a little bit if it's going to be used to kind of emulate that change in height. So I'm going to lift these up like so, and then that tells us that we can lift these up as well to get that kind of straightening across the top of the wing. We can lift this as well. Oh, something else we haven't checked is the front view. And actually, look at it, I'm getting really close to the front view just by guesstimating where stuff should be placed on the surface. So that's always encouraging when you see that sort of thing going on. But we can go ahead and use this to speed up the process slightly. Okay, and I think it was this guy needs to maybe come back down a little ways. We may have to just kind of eyeball that, which is fine, of course. Okay, now back up here to the top view. We can see where this is going, and it seems to be getting where we want it to go. But now it looks like we're ready, more or less, to start expanding the wing on out toward the wingtip, which is good. That's what I want. So let's hit Control Tab, E, and we'll grab, actually let me see if I can just Alt click. There we go. Grab all those edges at once. Let's go to the top view, and I don't want to go too far. Well, I don't know, it's pretty straight overall, so we could probably just do this. And then I can scale in the y-axis, so S and then Y, and then just sort of scale this down. We can also do S in X and pull that down until it's nice and straight. Then we need to switch over to the front view and pull this down. We can also do S and Z and scale that down pretty flat. Now, remember, this is only the top edge of the wing, so give yourself enough room to create the geometry for the bottom half of the wing as well. We can rotate this around, and didn't mean to do that, but we can pull this out a little ways. And that's lining up pretty well, just for kind of a quick guesstimation. Can grab these vertices and tuck them downward. And check it out from the top view. Not too terribly much cleanup that needs to be done, really. Nothing frightening, anyway. Now, I am going to leave this hanging over just a little bit for some protrusion into that end wing piece, which I'm thinking at the moment that I'd like to make out of a separate piece of geometry, just for sake of ease. And it looks like the front leading edge of the wing is sticking out way too far, which is fine and easy to fix. Okay, so now if we take a look at this from exterior and then we smooth it out, that's actually not half bad. We got a little bit of a weird coloration thing going on here, but that's okay. We knew that would happen because we still have to kind of change what the geometry is doing right there. Let's take a look at least getting that started. So I'm going to jump to the top view. Let's unshade all of this stuff. And, now, if I was doing this, if I was the modeler, I think I would add, actually let's go back into edit mode first. Add an edge, say right about here, for starters. And we'll slide this back. And I can actually, I could probably get away with anchoring that off and just dropping it from the equation. Yeah, let's do that for now. I mean, if I'm wrong, then I'm just wrong and I can fix it later. But let's grab these two vertices and Alt-M at last, and turn that into one big triangle. And then we'll pull this forward till it lines up to right about there. We can pull this forward as well. And we can pull this forward, and those can just kind of continue their little pattern of trailing off. We can line these up with the back of the wing a little more nicely than they are now, which is very nice. Okay. Now here, let's hit Control R once more, and we're going to place that there. I don't really like how that anchored over there, but I'm not going to argue too much with it at the moment. And I see what it's getting at. Actually, let me do this. I'm going to undo a few times. So I'm spamming Control Z until we get back to this point where I anchored that off. And let's instead, let's pull this forward. I'm not going to worry about turning this into a triangle yet. I reserve the right to do it momentarily, just not right this very moment. I'll pull this forward. Let's go back and fix these again. Whoops. Okay, and that looks pretty good. Now, here, let's hit Control R, drop on another edge, like so, that I can just pull up to about here. Now, if I was being really overly cautious with all of my edges, I'd want to go ahead and anchor this off so it didn't turn into anything too severe. I don't really need this great big stripe of geometry running all the way down the surface is what I'm getting at. So we can probably grab these guys and merge those to last. And again. And again. And again. And again. So then I just use Shift R for that last one, which I often forget to use that shortcut, but it is there. Let's see. Now, I really don't care for that, so let's hit Shift R and just merge that down as well. Now we do have this little tiny protrusion bit here that we could take care of. So let's take a look at doing that. I'm going to hit Control R and we'll drop an edge. Oh, well, right down one side of it, I suppose. Yeah, we'll do that. And yeah, that's a start anyway. Now, if I switch over to edges, I can grab these three edges, and we can do edge slide. I hit Control E to bring up that menu, and we can straighten this back up a little bit. We can hit Control R and add another edge here. And then, I'm just kind of thinking, we can create another edge. Let's turn this into a point. There's a couple of ways we could do this. Let's see. Let me go back over the top view, and I think probably the way I'd like to do this would just be to utilize this edge here if there's any way I can get away with it. Though I can see a benefit to adding another edge in here as long as I anchor it off appropriately. Let me see if I can get away with that. I can always merge in all kinds of different directions later on if I need to. So let's just start here, and we'll drop that in. Now, let's switch over to vertices, and Alt-M, merge these together, Shift-R, Shift-R. Now we can take this and kind of center it up. I just don't know about making that a single point. I think that's what's bothering me, is that I would like that to have just a little bit of thickness when it's done, because it's not really a point. It's got a little bit of rounding. I understand that adding that much rounding could be problematic for us. At the same time, just leaving a little bit of a straight edge there at the tip is going to help a lot. So maybe what we can do is hit our merges from here up. And just kind of let that go for now. Now that does require some cleanup as for which vertex was higher than the other. So we'll take a quick look at cleaning that, pull this back down. Okay, I think we got something going so far. But we are at about 33 minutes, so what I'm going to do is save this right here, and then in the next video we'll just continue working on the wings and move along through the rest of our ship. So that will wrap things up for this video. Thank you so much for watching.